Hello, hello, and welcome back to episode 7 of Heroic Stats and Any Heroic Podcast. My name's Stephen. I'm here as usual with the intern John, Dave, the only person that actually provides any competitive insight to the podcast,
Ooh.
and our Lord and Savior, ruler of the GBHL. He was briefly at the top. He is just the man in charge now, Mr. Dewey Evans.
Hello, hello.
Say
Mr.
hello,
Witch
Dewey.
King.
I missed my chance to cause a pandemic and win the league.
Yeah, well, you weren't in charge at that point.
No,
You
someone
could
else
have,
was.
I assume you could have exercised your executive powers and just called the league there, but it wouldn't have been a very popular decision.
For me, it would.
Yeah, for
One
for a
man
very
team.
small area in Wiltshire, it would have been very
Yeah.
popular.
Spectacular.
Circling
So-
around the Chippenham area.
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't met you, Dewey, which if you compete in the GBHL, or go to a GBHL events, or have gone to GBHL events in the last 9 or 10 years, you should have met Dewey at some point. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the hobby, firstly?
So I had a mate at primary school who had some fantasy stuff. I can't even remember what it was. So I got into fantasy. I remember having the big rats that were like, and the rats and the bats and the spiders for fantasy.
Okay.
And then got into Empire, and then saw Lord of the Rings, and that was that.
Yeah.
That stuff swiftly got binned, or at least pushed to the side. And
Some would describe you as a fanatic. You had an Anduril at your wedding, if I'm not
I was
incorrect.
gifted an Anduril
You were
at my
gifted an
wedding.
Anduril. Yeah.
Yeah, and cut the cake with it
Yeah.
whilst I was slightly inebriated.
Drunk at a wedding? Madness.
Yeah, the drunkest I've been at any wedding was my own, which I think
That's
is
the way to do it.
which
Yeah,
is
that is the
quite
way to do it.
spectacular. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No one can tell you off apart from maybe one or two people. But it's a good time.
So Dewey, you're a regular tournament goer. You're also a tournament organizer. You are
yes.
also kind of de facto leader slash founding member of the Guardians of Wiltshire, who do all sorts of
Yes.
gaming widgets. There's a Discord server. There's a Facebook group where you organize games
Yes.
in Chippenham. There's also a YouTube channel, which sometimes gets videos when you've got time.
Yeah.
You're also the league coordinator as of this year, or
Correct.
I suppose end of last year, which makes you my boss.
No, start of this year. Let's go start of this year.
Start of this year. Okay. That means you won't be
Yeah.
associated with the controversy that happened on December the 29th. For anyone who's aware of that, get at me in the comments. So you are very, very involved with the hobby, aren't you? It's fair to say.
Yeah, a little bit. If I didn't have this background on, you could see the chaos that is my hobby space as well. Yeah, so like you say, I started going to tournaments in 2015. 2016 started YouTube with Luke, did some battle reports, did some like hero spotlights. That gradually faded away when I started a new job, and then kind of came back in lockdown. Obviously nothing else to do. And then yeah, I've been running events for 5 years now, I think. And then got into 3D printing, and I'm an engineer by degree. So designing weapons and shields and widgets and you name it. Did your job before you as rankings officer
Yep.
and before that I was a regional rep. So yeah, and then I heard Ali was stepping down and wanted to keep it in good hands, and continue the work that he was doing. So yeah, so went for league coordinator.
Have you found that to be much of a difference? I guess you're already pretty well aware of the inner workings of the committee before you took it up. Have you found does the crown weigh heavy on your head, as I guess I'm asking?
Sometimes I was essentially Ali's right hand man anyway.
Bruno Wormtongue.
Yeah, so much of this year's rules for the GBHL I collated and wrote up.
Very nice.
So yeah, so kind of I've got a good grip on it all. There's bits and pieces that I wasn't involved with previously, but heard of via Ali, and I've obviously had to be involved with that now. But yeah, generally it's good. I've got a little bit more time on my hands nowadays, as Stephen is probably starting to find out. The rankings, and especially getting lists from TOs can be taxing. It was more getting them all in the same format. The lists, that is. The rankings and entering a tournament into the spreadsheet, once you get it down, is pretty quick. For me, I got it down to like 5 minutes. And then, yeah, it was collating the lists so they were all in the same format, which we've tried to rectify this year with the results submission slip. But yeah, so.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress, but
absolutely,
it seems to be going relatively smoothly for now, at least.
I think I just wanted to shout this out. I know it probably doesn't get said enough, but I think it's quite a thankless task being the committee for something like this, especially in the last couple of years. It's absolutely ballooned in size. So I think you just want to get out there that despite all the banter, I think you guys do a really good job overall. I think.
Yeah, for
You're
those...
welcome, Dave.
I was mostly directing that at Dewi, but
yeah, my fellow minions. Yeah, no, for those who haven't been around or heard the stats at the end of last year, in the 2022 season, we had 55 events and about 750 players. Last year, we had 119 events and 1,350 players. So it just exploded.
Doubled in size.
Yeah, which meant last year processes had to be refined and put in place and dealt with way differently than before. Because we don't know everyone in the community anymore, which is great, but also it can throw up a few problems.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's fascinating, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not fascinating enough to want to actually dedicate my free time to doing it, but fascinating.
Yeah. I think me and John were under a weird assumption that this was a paid role. And only after being elected in unanimously, because there were no other candidates, did we realize that it was entirely voluntary and giving up several days of our life a year to sort things out. To be fair, I kind of enjoy it.
Stephen, it's all right. If you do a good job this year, I'll double your pay.
2 times 0 is,
it goes on the CV, boys. It goes on the CV.
It goes on the CV.
You
legitimately
joke about the CV, but
you
I
legitimately
that's not a
application
joke.
points for my psychiatry further training for being involved in a national organization and a leadership role.
Like I that's kind of a joke, but also totally not. Like I was talking to Ali about this the other day. He was on the committee as the head for what, like 6 years, 7 years,
5, I think it was.
I don't know when he got. I think it was like 2018 or something. He got elected. It might have been the end of 2018. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Especially now, you can be like, hey, it's over 1,000 players. You know, organized on a sort of umbrella level, over 100 events in a year. I mean, that's crazy. So it's impressive.
I started a new job in the new year, and in my interview, I used an example of a situation I had to resolve with people from the committee stuff.
It's just all good stuff, isn't it?
And
to find out what that situation is, check out our Patreon.
I was going to say, well, you get all the tea, but you have to pay.
Yeah, no, we won't go into that.
No, I think that is probably smarter. Right, shall we move on to the tournament we have this weekend? It's a nice little segue because Dewi was heavily involved in this one.
Yeah,
Stephen hasn't asked us about what hobby we've done.
Yeah, I was going to say we've passed over the hobby because we've been talking about the committee and interesting things like that. Hobby talk. Stephen, what have you got up to this week? John, what have you been up to?
For our Spotify listeners, Stephen just took himself off camera. I've painted up the 9-foot ring wraiths, and I'm in the process of painting up 9 mounted ring wraiths.
The named wraiths?
No, the regular old ones.
Just regular.
Some would call them.
So the
just for narrative play, right, John?
Yeah, just for narrative.
I mean, is that the pack of 9 where you got all the 9 different foot poses where they're like swinging their swords around and stuff?
Yeah, mine are alternatively sourced, so all their swords are a bit wonky, and I was too lazy to reheat the resin. But
To be
yeah, so
fair,
it's-
that set is very expensive. It's like £50 for the 9 in resin. It feels a bit much, I think,
Yeah.
considering you're never going to need that many, apart from when you're playing Black Riders
or scenarios.
or scenarios. That's true. Forgot about the non-competitive gamers, as I will continue to do so for the entirety of my life with this game. But still,
Dave, what have you been up to?
I have done nothing because I'm a little hobby dormant at the moment. I am regenerating my energy to think about the lists that were for our tournaments coming up. So I'm having a little break at the moment to focus up on. There's several 700-point tournaments in a row coming up for me, or in around it at the same time, and I feel like it's a good opportunity to, take a little break now and then hit it again in a month or so. Come back, do a few more
Hit it and
tournaments,
quit
see how
it.
I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hopefully not quit it, but let's see.
And
Yeah.
Dewi, what have you been up to hobby wise? Have you been printing stuff? Have you been painting stuff? Have you been building stuff? Any new armies?
All of the above. New armies, no. Oh no, I lie. I painted up 6 members of Thorns Company foot mounted for
Oh, of course.
Club Balls.
Course.
And apart from that, I've been finishing off a few boards for the terrain, a few boards for the event that I ran at the weekend. So I finished 3 recently. Dead Marshes, a Buckland, so it's using the TT combat halfling stuff, and then a Kaer Andros board. Did any of you ever play Battle for Middle-earth on PC?
Yes.
Do you remember the Kaer Andros level with the big oval river?
I think
And it had
so.
like 6 bridges on it.
Yes.
Yeah,
when you say stuff like that, it means I'm going to have to cut to it in editing.
Kaer Andros was a key strategic foothold for the people of Gondor.
You're welcome, John. I can probably find you the photo really quickly. And essentially I've made an oval river, so it starts corner to corner, splits into an oval, and it's got 4 bridges, 2 fords and ruins and stuff around it. So I finished that one literally last Friday. And the event was on Sunday, but also printing tokens and objective markers for little goodie bags and stuff like that. So yeah, been busy.
And with that, it's probably a good segue to go on to the one and only event of the weekend. Part of the reason why we've got you on the podcast. It's Rain on the Mountain 2024.
Yes.
So firstly, this was the sequel to last year's Rain on the Mountain.
Correct.
Which quite a few of us went to, actually. I think of the Any Heroics members, only 2 didn't attend, which is really, like, for us, that's really good, but it wasn't the 2 that you'd expect. It was John that didn't go, and Whitefoot, Jack Whitefoot, who didn't go. So I even got my mates up from Devon.
Year?
Yeah, I got my mates from Devon up, who were in Any Heroics. Shout out Louis, George, and Nick.
I thought I was your mate from Devon in Any Heroics.
Yes, you are, but you're not in Devon. So
I was at the time.
You were, yes, correct. Importantly, this was advertised last year as the first ever event with its own weather effects in the UK. And that's its USP, really.
Yeah.
It was down in Kington Langley Village Hall, which is not too far from Chippenham, funnily enough.
Nope.
The TO was this man here, Dewi Evans. GBHL 80 points, 600 points, 4 games. Special weather effects, we'll get onto that in a second. Had an absolute plethora of prize support, as your events always do. We had spot prizes, we had best good, best evil, top 3 good and evil, top 3 in general. There's also, and I've got one of these trophies myself, the Rise of Gandalf and the Fall of Saruman trophies. One of the, actually my favorite trophy I own is the Gandalf 3D print, which is for halfway through the event, you see who rises or falls the furthest from their position there to the final position.
So I started doing this I think I can't remember if I did it for Rain last year. I definitely did it for my 100.
You did do
Mhm.
it for Rain last year because
I
that's
did.
where I won it.
Oh, is that where you got it? Excellent. So yeah, so I take the halfway rankings, and basically rank everyone from that point and find everyone's final ranking and find the difference. The person who got the Fall of Saruman this year fell 23 places out of
Not
50.
bad.
And the person who won Rise of Gandalf climbed 25 places.
There's what places.
It's a really nice idea because it means that you're not shooting yourself in the foot if you win the third game and you've lost the first two. So you don't miss out on wooden spoon. There's always something to play for. And I think that's a really nice little touch alongside the spot prizes for first person to complete a specific part of each.
Yeah.
part
We also
of the
have
mission.
Average Joe, so
Yes.
whoever finishes dead middle.
Yeah.
And I've just been tweaking rules pack for the summer, and I'm going to include for the big events anyway, like whoever's like a quarter of the way down. So like a quarter of the way down, halfway down, 3/4 of the way, will all get a prize.
Interquartile Quentin. There you go.
Yeah, no.
Not going to catch on,
We
Stephen.
tried. So we will
He has
have
a
a look at
maths degree.
special weather effects in a minute. Most sporting was Bradley Cottington. Congratulations,
that
Bradley.
tracks.
I think he's won it a couple of times before. So
He's definitely got a bunch of
Yeah.
sportings and the odd wooden spoon.
yeah. So well
been
done,
around a
shout out
while.
you. And best painted was again. I think he won one a
He
couple
won
of
at
weeks ago.
Clubbles. He won at Clubbles.
Yes,
Oh,
he did win at Clubbles. That was
is
it.
it the dwarves again?
It
No.
wasn't the dwarves again.
Oh,
It was Beornings. So firstly, boo
Oh.
hiss for taking Beornings to an 80. Secondly, holy shit, these are gorgeous.
They're
Yeah.
incredible.
And each one has their own like little bit of style, their own little it's
Well, they are very
beautiful.
nice. I always find Beornings annoying when I see that. It has to be something for me. I think Beornings have to be something incredible for me to vote for them now, just because, and this is me being a curmudgeon, they're all amazing models because they're Forge World, and
Yeah.
100% Forge World armies have such an edge on looking amazing. Having said that, Chris has done an absolutely fantastic job again, which isn't shocking if you've seen his other armies. They're amazing.
Yeah.
These are fantastic. I think the choices of colors are excellent here as well. I
Yeah.
really enjoy that.
Yeah,
But I wouldn't have voted for it just because boo Beornings. But
the
that's,
blue theme is quite nice.
yeah, no, that's a great choice. That has a
my-
really nice tone.
My favorite part of the army is actually this, which is he's got a Beorning in red, who is the beekeeper. Apparently, he's got beehives.
Oh, he's got a
yeah.
beanie.
And
I
he's
was
got a
going to
beanie.
say, if you've met Chris, I don't think I've seen him without a beanie on.
Yeah,
I was going to say that does resemble him actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think it's got glasses. I think that's what's going on with the
I
eyes.
think so.
It's
I
either
think
that or
so.
it's been stung a lot and is allergic to bees.
I've got a lot of time as well for people that win multiple best painters with multiple different armies. It's always quite impressive when people can just churn out multiple armies to a standard that gets them best painted at events.
Yeah, 5 or 6 display boards, right, John?
Different display boards.
For those of you who are listening in Spotify land, apologies. We will be with you with audio content in a second. But if you
they
do
get
get a
to-
chance, look
They
at
get
this
to listen to us gush. That's their reward for listening on
This-
Spotify.
gorgeous, slightly alternative paint scheme for Beorn and Grim Beorn. A bit lighter than they traditionally would be, I'd say. The
Still phenomenal.
fur on Beorn, on Grim Beorn, sorry, it's a beautiful model as it is, but my God.
It's just, yeah, it's incredible. This is the first,
Yeah.
I obviously being a TO, I was running around trying to sort everything out and make sure everyone voted, so I didn't get a chance to fully look at all of these. But yeah, like the pictures when Chris sent them through to me were just phenomenal.
Fantastic work.
Yeah, and then
I like the Dead Hunter Rock on Beyond Space is a nice touch as well. I think that's from the choir here, possibly.
I believe so,
Ooh.
yes.
Maybe.
I don't know though.
Chris's paint job is really good on Beorn, but it's still just such an ugly model.
I was thinking that as well.
Yeah.
I like the way he's
It's well
painted the bit
painted.
around the head to really show that, like, for some reason the bear has like
Mutton
sideburns.
chops.
It's got mutton chops.
Yeah.
And he even had a little display board to go with it, including a
Displayed
well
bit of terrain.
and everything. Oh,
Fabulous.
Yeah, this is
Well
the
done,
labor of
Chris.
love, and you can really tell.
Yeah. Well, I certainly love it.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing work, Chris. Shout out to you once again. Hopefully we'll see your name come up some more with some new different armies. Looking forward to seeing more of your work.
Steven's like, yeah, well, good job, Chris. Chop chop. Next
Chop
one.
chop. Paint me an army, Chris. Where's your Rivendell army? I'll buy it off you. I won't. I don't have enough money to pay for your paint jobs.
No, I was gonna say, unless you want to give him a cut price, that's gonna be expensive. Anyway.
So just very quickly, I just thought I'd run over just because it's a bit of a quirky way of running the event before we do the top lists. The weather effects. You ran it a bit different this year. You ran it with 4 separate pools, so each pool would come at once, and then you rolled for the weather effects. Do you think it's fair to say, and this is going somewhere, that a lot of these disadvantaged shooting?
So are we going to cover the time of day beforehand?
We're going to cover the time of day in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. Not particularly.
No?
The time of day affects it more.
Okay. Just because, in my opinion, the torrential rain, the black smoke, the mist and fogs, and the high winds. So I've looked into what each of these effects do. I'm not going to put them on the podcast because we could spend an hour.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So 5 out of the 12 do significantly affect shooting with either reducing range, reducing chance to hit, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, just thought it was quite interesting. For those of you who do want to know more about the weather effects, do go check out the rules pack. It's on the event, which is now has been and gone. But some quite interesting ideas if you're thinking about.
I'm very on board with
scenarios.
Things making shooting worse.
I think it raises, not specifically just for this event, but ATs, but also other events that have kind of specific things in the rules pack that does affect army composition. I think it just means the lists you're going to see are going to be a little bit different. Those players that want to do well are going to have to tweak their armies to the rules pack, and that's what the best players do.
So you say they disadvantage shooting. The most popular army going was Lothlorien.
Yeah.
Lothlorien's not a pure shooting army, though.
Yeah, but it's got a decent amount. But yeah, like across the way, there was loads of different armies. People had taken random stuff. People had taken stuff that they thought was quite good. People had taken stuff that was probably pretty good, but they just got it finished. So like testing it out, that kind of thing. But I can tell you now, the weather effects do affect the game.
Yeah.
And do make things go a little bit crazy.
I heard an interesting story regarding Bert Leach's Theoden. Is that right?
So I can talk you through each of the games. So round 1, we had Blizzard. And it was, oh God, what was the scenario? I can't remember the scenario, but it was Blizzard. Then we had Rain. Then we had Lightning Storm, which was by far my favorite round. And then we had Extreme Heat. So Blizzard, I've got them quickly here. So Blizzard, if you any non-monster wearing armor or no armor reduces the movement by 1. Cavalry models, you use the rider as reference, and then water terrain becomes open ground. But if you move across it, you roll a d6, and on the roll of a 1, you're just removed as a casualty. So Henry Britain's Alfred strolled across the ice and disappeared. And there was a couple of other. Henry's Bomber also did the same, but we did rule that you could might it, and someone else's model walked across, and I can't remember who it was, but had to might it as well. Rain just reduces shooting attacks, and shallow water becomes difficult terrain and you need a swim test, that kind of stuff. Lightning Storm was essentially a 25mm marker that people that the players rolled a d6 for. That was the number of lightning strikes. Then they alternated who got to place the marker, and then we had a scatter dice and a d6, and it went that direction. I didn't quite realize how often you'd get direct hits, which is a third of the time with the scatter dice. So the main things that happened: Alfred got zapped again. Henry's Alfred got zapped by lightning and died. Then Sean's Mummock War Leader got hit 5 times directly across his game and died. And then Bert Leach's Theoden got hit 3 turns in a row directly, or 3 like lightnings in a row directly, took a wound every time and failed to make it to combat.
What's the damage on the lightning strike?
Strength 5.
Oh,
to everything under the marker. So
that's, I mean,
but it's only a 25 mil marker.
Yeah, but he's D7 as well, so that 3 in a row is pretty unlucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was he was in the corner of the room, and I could just hear giggling from them the whole time. But yeah, it was command the battlefield as well. I remember on that one, so people were like trying to use lightning to get people off board quarters as well, which was quite funny. But if it was like a smash in the middle, it could have just been absolute chaos. And then for the last one, we had extreme heat, which is just kind of the opposite of blizzard. So if you're wearing heavy armor, dwarf armor, or heavy dwarf armor, you reduce your movement by 1. And then if you're outside of 8 inches and line of sight of a friendly model, you roll a dice on a 5+. You must travel towards that nearest friendly model as quickly as possible. So it's like you're kind of lost in the mirage. So
wow, that's harsh.
But yeah,
it was
you'd have to send models off in pairs.
Yeah, there was someone who it was seize the prize, and their Thranduil got the prize and darted off, and then had to come back, which is quite amusing.
Oh dear.
It's very cool to see a tournament which really takes the competitive flexibility of an 80, by which I mean it's a chill event. You're there to have laughs and have fun, and it does this with it, which is makes interesting new rules, different ways to build your army, and then adds just an absolute slew of chaos with things like lightning bolts.
The lightning round, I was giggling every time I was walking around all the players, because people were just like, "This is insane." Because people clumped up. Yeah, people clumped up, and one lightning bolt hit the middle, and then the next time I walked past, all of their models were like at least 1.5 inches apart from each other. It was just hilarious.
You did also have a Dawn and Dusk feature.
Yes.
So game 1, roll a d6, add 3 to the dice score. That's how many turns will be played at night time for the first turn of the game. That's you then essentially play those turns under the Clash by Moonlight darkness rules.
Correct.
Similar, but in reverse for game 3, Dusk. Roll a d6, add 3. Those are the number of turns that we played at daytime. And then game 4 is always under the effects of the Dark of Night special rule.
Yeah,
that's the only one which can be Clash by Moonlight. So again,
so we had
for people to think
we
about.
actually had like way more night than I thought we would, or that we did last year anyway. We had 8 turns of darkness for dawn, and then only 4 turns of daylight for dusk. So yeah, the majority of the 4 games were played at night.
Wow. Goblins OP.
Yeah, Goblins OP.
Ish.
Nighttime mirages. What's going on there, Dewi?
So probably a good way to get onto the podium list, which of course we're expecting lots of goblins and not much shooting, because shooting was, nerfed, right? So third place, Mr. Elliot Harry, Serpent Horde and Far Harad, 38 models total, of which he has 12 bows. So first of all, he's got Suladan, everyone's favorite model at the moment, on Armored Horse. 3 warriors with bow, 3 warriors with spear and bow, 4 serpent guard, 1 serpent rider, 2 watchers of Karna with twin blades. Then he has Raza, Fang of the Serpent, 4 warriors with bow, 2 with bow and spear, 4 serpent guard, a serpent rider, and a watcher of Karna with twin blades. And then he had a Mahud King strong on I was about to say on war spear, on war camel with war spear and shield, 4 Mahud warriors with blowpipes, 4 Mahud warriors with blowpipes and spear, and 2 raiders with war spear and blowpipe.
Decent.
Yeah.
Now this immediately reminds me of you, Dewi.
I was going to say, Dewey's grinning like a maniac here.
I've seen you
Yeah.
run something extremely similar to this at 650, but you used the Betrayer instead of Raza,
Correct.
which is fairly lit. I think Suladan and Mahood King is immediately a great combo because you've
Yeah.
got 2 combat chunky beaters, 2 strikes, 2 fight 5, 2 3 attack models, and Suladan coming with March built in just makes building everything so much easier. One of the reasons why I said versatile, and I'll die on that hill, because having March on your already extremely versatile piece makes him amazing. Obviously, doesn't quite work the same when he has to be your leader. But I like this list a lot. Triple strikes, 3 attack heroes, lots of models, lots of shooting.
Yeah.
Strength 4 warriors. Basically the main problem with it is it's all a bit tissue thin. You get
Yes.
a couple of
one
bad
bad
turns.
turn.
Yeah, you can all fall apart. However, ideally you will have softened them up enough, and you've got your 3 heroes who can bolster the line pretty hard. Yeah, I like it.
So yeah, this is kind of, so Elliot is one of my guardians. He's on our team for this year. And he spoke to me quite a lot before any event, not necessarily this one, about this kind of stuff. And this is the list he's recently finished, as in painting and building. And yeah, it's very similar to what I'd run at 600.
Yeah.
If not the same. I'm currently toying around with the idea of splitting, of not taking any Farhad, and going pure Serpent Horde. But yeah, it's good.
We've just lost our competitive legitimacy. I'm sure he'll be back. I think what this list does really well in the rain event is knowing there's going to be darkness and knowing there's going to be a lot of times where you're shooting is only 12-inch effective. Why not get some blowpipes?
Absolutely.
Where you can move half and still shoot people with +1 to wound, re-rolling once. You've got some of that mounted, and then you've still got a shit ton of bows, which 12 bows at 600 points is nothing to laugh at. So yeah, the 12-inch range threat here is significant, and essentially your opponent has to come to you, and then you suddenly got a bunch of Mahood who are pretty choppy, and a bunch of other models to just cut through you.
Yeah,
Always solid.
The raiders specifically are very good anti-hero pieces.
Yeah.
When that hero's mounted, because you just like
those camels.
you just like, cool,
with a passion.
Camel, go strength 4, his horse, please.
Yeah, 50-50. You lose, your Gilgalad horse, your Elrond horse. I'll try and not name an elf hero. Your Imrahil
Glorfindel horse.
Not Glorfindel horse because he's got Horse Lord, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I've
still
used,
good to get Faye out.
But yeah.
I've used camels to take Gulliver down to 2 wounds before combat even happened. Before I've even killed Balin with Impaler hits.
They're I really rate them. They are expensive, but they pop off. They really do. They pop off.
The thing is, if you give them the blowpipe, you actually have a very, very good skirmish ability.
Yeah.
Especially against other cavalry, because you're like, cool, I'll sit 10.5 away and I'll blowpipe your horse, or try and blowpipe your horse, and then if that doesn't work, I'll just charge you.
I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, Tom Patterson took a heavy Mahood camel list with lots of blowpipes for a similar reason.
He got to rain.
Yeah.
He took Suladan, Betrayer on Fellbeast, and a Mahood King, and then he had like 5 camels, 5 serpent riders, and 5 raiders. It was something along those lines.
It was a big kitey boy. Anyway, moving on from this feast of, I'm going to say, ranged weapons, let's move on to something with a little bit fewer ranged weapons. Just kidding. It's Theodred's Guard. Second place, Alex Richardson. I assume this is the same guy who won
Men of the West extraordinaire.
Yes, absolute Giga Chad. We were talking about him last week on the podcast. He's taken Theodred's Guard, a 36 model list with 9 bows. he has, of course, got Thedred on horse with shield. 4 Warriors of Rohan, all Helmengas with throwing spear and shield. 4 Rohan Royal Guard with throwing spears. A Rohan Royal Guard on horse with throwing spears. 3 Outriders. And he's got Elfhelm on horse with 3 Helmengas with throwing spears and shield. 3 Rohan Royal Guard with throwing spears. A Rohan Royal Guard with throwing spears and horse. And 3 Outriders. And he's got Grimbold with no horse, because obviously he can't take a horse. FAQ it, please. 4 Warriors of Rohan with Helmingus, throwing spear and shield. 1 Warrior of Rohan with Helmingus banner and throwing spear. And 3 Royal Guard with throwing spear. And 3 more Rohan Outriders. It's, again, playing on that 12-inch bubble where you're going to get the +1 to wound in 3 of the games. That's what I'm looking at here. Lots of throwing spears.
And
I mean,
Swarm Protector.
And
Vedge's guards.
yeah, at 600
Solid.
points, it slaps.
The main at 650 is it caps out. If you don't take the captain, it caps out pretty hard at 650, or you can opt to take a captain over Elfhelm. I think Grimbold is mandatory above a certain point because he brings a strength 4 from the Warriors upgrade. But yeah, this is how you play this list basically. Just max out troops, max out throwing spears. It's a solid list. The only thing that's missing is the march, and again, that's just a choice.
Is
I think
really 95 points on horse with shield?
With a shield, yeah.
He's
Yes.
so cheap. I know he goes down like a sack of potatoes, but my God.
That's probably why he's so
He-
cheap.
He's a excellent ally in soupy lists because he hits like a
Yes.
truck, even without the army bonus. Him and Boromir of Gondor are best buds in that regard.
Yeah, the reroll to wounds is very good. But like you say, whenever I build a list, if I don't have much, I always try to think of a way I would kind of mitigate it, and having all the throwing spears is exactly that. You can threaten like a 14-inch range, and you just got to plan a bit further ahead.
Yeah. I really rate Elfhelm. I think he's really good. I know a lot of people don't like him, which is fair.
I think he's cool.
But I think he's cool. He's that ability to almost camel-like to take out a hero's horse who you don't want to be fighting otherwise. Like you look at your I don't know, Helm's Guard, you take out Helm Hammerham's horse with an Elfhelm throwing spear. Sure, he's got Horse Lord, but suddenly you're laughing because you're like, well, that hero is suddenly far less of a threat. I don't really know where this list falls apart. Is it on the fact that it's got a lot of D5? Is that the main issue here? Because the numbers are solid.
It's got quite a lot of Royal Guard in there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's plenty of Royal Guard. He's got like 10 on foot. It's not fabulous, but like it's solid in terms of defense. Like you can alternate who you put on the front depending on what kind of shooting you're facing.
Yeah. And I guess
all spear support.
He's got a couple of non-hero cav models for objective grabbing. The Rohan Royal Guard, I really rate them for their ability to just say, I'll just go sit over here. Although having said that, in this list, everything has bodyguard. So
Does he not have a banner?
he does
Yes,
in the
it's
final
in
warband.
Grimbold's warband.
Actually, that is one thing I would know.
Oh, yeah, there
I'd
you go.
always put that in Thedred's warband personally, just because I'd rather have it with a leader's warband, but that's just me.
Doesn't really make a difference, I guess.
It doesn't make a hell of a lot of difference except in Maelstrom.
So I think my internet was getting all crappy when you were explaining the list.
That's all
I
right.
just assumed I'd know it all.
John, any thoughts?
I played something very similar at 600. I say very similar. I played Helm's Guard at 600 points at the GP. Similar sort of build, lots of kind of Royal Guard, lots of throwing spears, and it just ate through Hunter Orcs, even taking out Helm's Horse pretty quick. He is obviously more killy than Thedred, but this list has kind of a bit more utility with the other heroes versus just 2 kind of basic captains. I think it is quite a good list. I think you hit the nail on the head. There isn't really a clear and obvious weakness. It's just a really solid list. It's got kind of a point of difference, the million throwing spears against certain lists.
Yeah.
It's got a decent chunk of fight 4. It's not exceptional, but it's not bad across the kind of troops. Decent chunk of fight 6. It's just a pretty good all round list, I think.
I think it's one of these master of, like, jack of all, master of none.
Yeah, I think in terms of legions, it's an all rounder. It has the main niche, which is it has the throwing spear spam. I think I rate it slightly higher than Helm's Guard because this is more dispersed, and I think the Helmingus upgrade, which Helm's Guard don't get ironically, is really good. Strength 4 troops is amazing.
Yeah, for good as well. Because
Yeah.
being part of the exclusive Strength 4 club, for the 4 good profiles that get it.
It's not very many
Helmingus,
troops.
Dwarf.
It's mostly dwarves and then Bjornings, which is a bit different.
Yeah.
Helmingers also have axes, which is nice.
Yeah, the option to get up to Strength 5 in a situation where maybe you will die, but maybe a hero charges in and you go, well, I might as well piercing strike.
Yeah, I mean, good
because if I
don't really
lose a
have
fight,
that
I'm
otherwise.
dying. And suddenly they've got to spend might to win the combat because otherwise you might kill them or wound them.
Great for piling onto D7 heroes as well.
Yeah, just
All
a
right,
very solid list all around. Let's move on to first place, Mr. Ewan Williams. It's another one of your boys, Dewi.
Yep.
At your event,
What is this?
some would call that a
Reg.
fix. So this is a Defenders of Helm's Deep Legendary Legion list. 599 points. Boo, not making use of all of his points. 31 models, 10 bows. He has, of course, Theoden, King of Rohan, with heavy armor and shield. Halath, Son of Hammer, who's basically an auto-include, I believe. 3 Warriors of Rohan with shield and throwing spear. 3 Rohan Royal Guard throwing spears. And 3 Galathrin Warrior with elf bow and spear. Gamling, Captain of Rohan with Royal Standard of Rohan. 6 Warriors of Rohan with throwing spear and shield. 3 Galathrin Warrior with elf bow and spear. And Gimli with 6 Warriors of Rohan with throwing spear and shield. And 3 Galathrin Warrior with elf bow and spear. So again, we're looking at a lot of throwing spears. That's 18 in total. We got a good amount of bows, 10 bows. And we've also got Gimli's throwing weapons. Can't forget those. I'm trying to look at somewhere where he could have spent 1 more point.
I tell you what he should have done. He should have swapped a Galadriel Warrior's hand and a half sword for a club just for bants.
Yeah. Lose that elven maid.
There isn't anywhere to spend with the way other than rejigging the warriors and stuff. There's nothing he can spend it on.
No, exactly.
He could have dropped a throwing spear and upgraded a model or something like that. But that
I don't know if he's got any more Royal Guard on foot.
I was going to say if he dropped a Warrior of Rohan or dropped a throwing spear off of a model, he could have then made one of his Warriors of Rohan into a Royal Guard. But it's not really that important to do that.
We've seen 2 first place and second place, both kind of throwing spear spam lists. Dave, how do you kind of approach kind of lists that are spamming that kind of 8-inch kind of scary wall of sticks?
Good armies can't shoot into combat is the main thing. And throwing spear spam armies are all good armies because they're all, well, I mean, you can have wild riders, but they don't really do this. So if you have their threat inches, especially a list like this, I mean, he's got 9 bows, which is annoying, but it's not at the end of the world. So he's going to be trying to get into range, or he's going to be holding back and peppering you, waiting for you to get into range. If you have any cavalry or fell wargs or wild wargs are good at this, things you can throw away and be like, okay, you march up towards him or run up, you stay outside of 8, and then when you actually want to fight, you chuck in your cav in a way where it's in front of half of his army. They're going to die, he's going to kill them, but you get to walk into range safely while he can't shoot past you. That's good for dealing with shooting armies in general if you have the opportunity. Anything in combat, no good model can shoot if it's in the way. So you can use the model to your advantage and put it sideways, all this kind of stuff, Just make it so that they can't shoot you.
Spider Queen's very good for that.
Spider Queen is decent at that. The Watcher in the Water is hilariously good at that because the tentacles are massive and they don't tails or wings. So if you happen to be fighting a model nothing can shoot past any of the watcher's entire massive frame if it's a good model, which is something I've done to my advantage in the past. Yeah, I think obviously Blinding Light and Pall of Darkness are excellent here, and also D6 is great versus throwing spear armies. If you don't have D6, you can have a bad time probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think Gimli is an interesting choice. People tend to go for Legolas, I think. Go hard on the shooting. I think Gimli beats hard, which is cool.
I think maybe the reason not Legolas is you've got a guaranteed night time, and you've got 2 games where you've got guaranteed additional turns of night. So
I agree that it's probably not.
Isn't. Yeah,
it's probably not the most sensible choice at this tournament. I'm just commenting on it. This is going for the standard Haleth for the infinite moves build, get the fight value. I don't know if I'd have built it this way, but I think it's an interesting build. I think I might have gone for something a little different, try and get some more bodies down.
Yeah, 31 seems a little low to me.
At 600, it's probably bare bones. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're pretty much all D5.
Yeah, he doesn't have much in the way of Royal Guard. He's only got 3 in there.
Yeah, I think, and I know I've spoken to other people about this, and they pick Gimli over Legolas because it means you don't have to throw Theoden into big stuff, which is always quite useful.
Legolas can also do that, to be fair. Legolas is exactly as good in just fighting with strike. Obviously, he doesn't have the option to go two-handed. But
Gimli being D8, I think, is the other thing.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
which is
I wouldn't say you're wrong. You're not going to get Aragorn in at these points, really.
No.
And do you ever really want Aragorn in Defenders of Houndstooth?
I think if you go big with it, you can do, but I probably wouldn't. I think it's either a spam list or it's something a bit like this kind of list. I think my favorite version is just turbo throwing spear spam.
Yeah.
I think I saw 57 models in this list at 800 points once. Which was nasty. He had like 18 elf bows, including Legolas, and then everything else was throwing spears.
Was that WTC?
It was at the Polish Team Championships, yeah.
Was it the Polish Team
he didn't take any shields. He didn't take the banner. He took a banner, but not the Royal Standard, because he was saving all the points he could. Legolas and insane amount of elves. No spears on the elves or anything. It was literally like shaving all the points off where you can.
You're giving Bert terrifying ideas.
Bad information. No, Bert wouldn't do that. He doesn't. He likes his Royal Guard too much.
I mean, Bert's just a fluff player at the end of the day. So
he also doesn't. That list doesn't like. If you run into elves with Blinding Light and D6, it's like, oh, yeah.
So, yeah, my Fight 6 Kingsguard block with Kieran behind it says hi. Moving on from Rain on the Mountains. Congratulations for another very well run event, Dewi. Sold out.
Oh, sorry, well done, Ewan, as well. I should say.
Well done, Ewan. Obviously, you got first place. Well done. Saw some lovely videos of the terrain. I think that's one of the things that really is outstanding at your events, especially, is the quality and quantity of terrain on the boards. Even Adam Searens would say that it's up to scratch. It really is. If you haven't seen a Guardians of Wiltshire event, at least check out photos on Facebook, because that is how terrain should be. Apart from that one cursed elf board with the walkways.
We don't use the walkways.
No, I know, not anymore.
We don't use.
I played 3 games at one tournament on that, and it was.
We don't use the walkways anymore.
The dark times.
The dark times. Still a good tournament though.
But yeah, no, we've got 23 boards complete at the moment, and we're planning to add some more. But yeah, they're all themed around.
I was going to say, I remember last year you had cards along the side saying this is what the theme of the board is, which was also really nice to read, especially at this kind of event where people aren't going to, crush the skulls of their enemies. They're going for an extra good time.
Yeah, no, I haven't done that this year, but yeah, we're ever expanding.
Moving on, we had an FAQ last week. It was only an itsy bitsy FAQ. For those of you who aren't aware, in Middle Earth, if you're listening from another gaming system, we get a 6-month update on the game, where we get any queries, rules queries, etc., updated from our Lord and Savior Jay Clare and his team. You can, of course, submit your own FAQs to the email address found wherever the hell it is. It's on the document for the FAQs. It was a bit of a smaller one this time round.
Only 4 of the documents were modified, which is
only
unusual.
4,
yeah,
which made my life a lot easier. But yeah, let's just go through a few
lightning
little
round
bits. Lightning round.
Don't take too long. We've been
Bosh!
chit-chatting for too long.
Can an Ent bludgeon a model riding a monster? No, it's a
but
monster.
It can hurl it.
Can
it's
hurl
strength
it.
8.
But of course it can't bludgeon it because it's not a man-sized model. It's a monster-sized model.
Well,
Don't be silly.
No,
The question there, I guess, is the Bring Wraith itself is.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's
I know.
man-sized, but it's good to clarify that.
If you
Slightly
are
odd.
looking to dismount a Ring Wraith or Radion
just-
Eagle,
You
just
can
hurl.
just hurl them, yeah.
If you're playing Ents into Ring Wraiths on Fell Beast, you're probably having a great time anyway. So you know.
I mean, yeah, you've got the Ent special
Yeah.
rules. They're amazing against Wraiths.
Next
Cool.
FAQ, the Dragon Emperor rune, the big one. Change
this
the
is a big
Dragon
one.
Emperor of rune's points value to 200 brackets from 170, both on his profile and in the host of the Dragon Emperor Legendary Legion
Yeah.
on page 93.
I
I think
think
this is the
that's
big
been
one
coming.
everyone was wanting. Well, not everyone was wanting, but everyone was foreseeing some kind of change.
Well, I think 200 points is fine for what he offers, frankly.
Yeah.
it's still
When you
decent.
compare him to it's not bad. That's not bad at all. That's perfectly fine. It's no longer obviously too cheap, I would
Yeah.
say. I think that's probably about what I thought it should be. Considering something like Boromir is still more expensive and offers similar, lesser powerful effects. Obviously, he's a better fighter and comes with 6 might, but still, he doesn't get a lot of the bonuses that the Emperor does. I think it's a fair price point comparison to sort of start with. I think it's fine. I think that's going to affect Dragon Emperor Legendary Legion primarily at about 700 points and below, which was already not its optimal operating level. I think once you get to 800, you probably won't even notice. Below 800, you will, though, I think.
Yeah. I think
that's fair.
It's the simplest change they can make without changing any of the special rules, which is what makes the Legendary Legion interesting and cool. Because if they took away the 3 black dragons or mucked around with that, again, then the Legion rule is just you get rerolls for heroes, which is cool.
Yeah.
I think design changes should always be not to remove the special idea of the Legion, but to reduce the power slightly if it is.
Yeah. I think the only
strong.
thing that really made sense to me in terms of like something realistic was either this points buff, white bump, or cut the banner to a 6-inch banner, which is still great, but it stops it from being insane.
The amount of times I've been like,
I mean,
the amount of times I've been like, oh, is your Dragon Emperor in banner range? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, no, it's literally half the width of the board. Of course it is.
It's like Harbinger of Evil. Like Harbinger of Evil is absolutely enormous.
Yes.
It's like 12-inch bubbles are huge. It's fine, but it's also like, of course it's in range. He's got an 80 mil base and a 12-inch bubble. But yeah, this is fine. I think the Dragon Emperor Legion itself needed hitting slightly, maybe.
Yeah.
I think just stopping it from being like hoardy and also extremely elite helps. This is going to be practically 4 less models or 2 less cav at 800 points, which is enough to make it a bit less spicy.
It was the fact you could still get to low 40s with a D6 5 army.
You could get
mental.
You could get the main 3 heroes: Emperor, Rutabi, Dragon. Sorry, not Dragon Knight, Brogir, and Captain. A smattering, axe-armed acolytes at the front, and then a smattering of cav, including the drum. It just was too much. I mean, it's not too much. I think it was just about okay. It wasn't obviously overpowered, which, by the way, I think is interesting that this was singled out for a nerf and nothing else was. But I think that's reasonable. I think a lot of the time, the things that get focused on and nerfed are the things that people complain about the most, and the Dragon Emperor has had a lot of complaining done about it since it was released in 2022.
It has been often touted as a relatively plug and play list, whereas some of the other things that are meta at the moment, potentially require a bit more nuance and skill.
What would we know about meta or
But-
nuance or skill?
Exactly. Moving on to the next FAQ point. If an Ent model targets the Dragon Emperor with a bludgeon brutal power attack while he's riding the royal palanquin, will he automatically be dismounted? Yes. This is the
It's
real
funny.
Dragon Emperor nerf. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
finally, Ents will reign supreme.
And
Now,
this
to
is Trevor's
rise into
response.
power.
Interestingly enough, you can bludgeon him off of his palanquin. You can't hurl him.
If you have the chance
Yeah.
to do either, you take him off the palanquin. Doesn't matter how you do it.
Well, obviously, but the fact that you can pick him up and hit other things with him, but you can't pick him up and hurl him.
Yeah, I mean, basically, Emperor still has a lot of. Honestly, he has so many more questions that could do with being answered. But I mean, I'm glad that this one's clarified, because the other alternative is that he picks up the Emperor, smashes things with it, and then puts him back on his palanquin
Yeah.
when he's done
There
smacking
you
him around,
go,
which is
your
just too
lordship.
funny to imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Will this be seen as a counter to the Dragon Emperor Legendary Legion? No, absolutely not.
And so,
Can you
for fun,
imagine?
they're a for fun list for sure.
Yeah,
Unless
for fun list.
they got
for
a
fun
legendary
list.
legion at some point, in which case they might become good, a la the Bionics.
Yeah. In the Fog of War scenario, do players secretly write their objectives down before or after deployment? After deployment.
Now, this isn't a change. This is always how it was, but it's good to have this clarified. I do find it kind of strange that this mentions specifically Fog of War when there are multiple other missions that do this.
There's assassination as well, for example.
Yeah,
It sets a precedent.
It sets a precedent, but it's one of
But
these things
also
that
can
people
be
find
argued.
this.
Yeah.
This is one of the things people find annoying about the FAQs is they'll set precedents by talking about one specific situation, and that, like, this could have been phrased in scenarios where you have to pick secret missions after deployment. It's like, when does that happen? Before or after deployment? It didn't have to be specifically about Fog of War.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I think if anyone argues that doesn't apply for assassination, or for example, picking like Raz's target, you need to give your head a wobble, because what the hell are you even doing?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it was played generally anyway, but it's good practice to have that in the FAQ, I think.
If a model has two weapons, such as a Dragon Cult Acolyte or a Corsair Reaver, and wishes to swap them from a different type of weapon for 1 point, can they only swap one and therefore use their original special strike and the one for the new weapon? No. If you swap weapons, you swap weapons.
I mean, that's interesting. I don't think it changes anything really. Generally, when people are swapping to axes, it's because they want axes, not because they want axes and swords.
Yeah. This is really just a buff for Iron Guard, right?
No. No, it's a nerf for Iron Guard for the same reason it's a nerf for everything else. Although it's not a particularly big nerf. Actually, it didn't matter for Iron Guard anyway, because when they're in the army when they have their army bonus, they reroll ones anyway, so they never needed their swords.
Yeah.
I'm referring to swapping swords to axes on Iron Guard, because they have throwing axes that look awful lot like hand axes.
Yeah. Which they can't use in melee combat. Next. Can a model be deployed in or on a piece of terrain that would make it impossible for other models to reach them during the course of the game, such as on top of a pillar, blah, 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 blah? No. If you do this in your games, you're a prick. Or
this is an interesting one.
You're very competitive.
Well,
It says deployed.
For me...
That's
the
main thing. And it doesn't say about FAQ objectives either.
Yeah.
Well, if you can't get there, it stands to reason that you couldn't get there without being deployed on there, I guess. The interesting thing to me is it says impossible for other models to reach, but it's like, what if flyers are on the board? What if like anywhere is possible for a flyer to reach, right?
If you have a flyer on your side, can you therefore deploy on top of buildings because you have a flyer and therefore something can reach it?
Yeah, that's...
You've opened up a can of worms here.
I like the idea, which is to say, trying to stop the point of... they like to talk about common sense. This isn't clear, but I think it's pretty clear that if you're even going to mention it, flyers kind of have to not be brought into the picture.
Yeah.
To be honest, because otherwise there isn't anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think it basically don't deploy on things that you can't climb on top of.
Yeah, that is the intention behind this FAQ.
Yes,
that's what
I
they
would say
should
that
have written.
with confidence.
Yeah.
I think it's a position issue that things are written slightly vaguely, but I think that's pretty clear what that is intended to do.
Yeah. In scenarios that allow models to exit the board, can the model exit the board via means other than its own movement, such as backing away, being commanded, compelled, hurled, flung back by a siege engine, or any other instance? No.
Yeah, this
Simple as.
isn't surprising. You can't throw people's models off the board. That'd be funny. You're like, all right, Bard, you're giving too many bonuses. Off the board with you.
Yeah.
Yeet.
Yeet.
Where can Bard come back? No, he went
no.
1 centimeter off the board.
He's off the
gone
board.
forever.
Similarly, in a very similar vein,
I like this. This is interesting.
Can you move through a model's control zone in order to exit a board, essentially? So
Yeah,
if
so
your
this-
movement to leave the board would take you through a control zone, can you just leave the board? No.
And this logically follows. This is a good example of an FAQ where it's like, this is something that logically follows, but also there could be an argument that, you know, as soon as you touch the board edge, you just blip out of existence.
Yeah.
Which obviously is kind of ridiculous when you think about what's actually happening.
Yeah.
But it means that you can't like wheel through a model. So if say there's 2 models left, one guy holding a 3-inch gap, blocking the board edge, or 2.5-inch gap, one guy trying to run off the board and recon, it's the make or break. You can't like charge that model with the control zone and wheel into the board edge and then consider it to have escaped. You still have to complete the charge as soon as you enter the control zone, which I think is cool. It's good.
Yeah,
That's a
useful
good change.
clarification,
Not really
I
a
think.
change, actually. I think it's good to clarify. That's a good example of
Yeah.
an FAQ, I think.
Yeah.
Because that's something that could happen, or albeit niche.
We're moving on to a few more ones which I would say most people already played this way anyway, but again, clarifications potentially for newer players coming from different systems. If a model begins its move within an enemy model's control zone and chooses to move away, can the model moving away still charge a different enemy model? Yes.
Yes, it can.
I think I've never met someone who doesn't play it this way, but I could see why you potentially might read it this way.
I think people
I've
sometimes
explained this
misunderstand control zones.
Yeah, I've explained this to a few people before. But once you explain it once, people are like, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a sec. If a cavalry model has the Fortify Spirit magical power cast on it, does the mount also gain the benefits? Yes. It specifically says the model gains the benefits. Similarly with Resistance to Magic for Dernhelm, the model has the special rule, and therefore the entire model gains the benefits. So yes.
Yeah.
This is sad news for any Black Dart enjoyers.
No, because it was always this way.
This is always how it's worked. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to the Black Dart change back whenever it was FAQ'd to say that you could just target a horse and not get it resisted.
Interesting point about Glorfindel. I was wondering about how the unbending resolve rule worked. He counts Glorfindel always counts as having had the Fortify Spirit magical power cast upon him. Doesn't actually mention the model, but I guess that's implied.
Yeah, well, you cast on Glorfindel the model, don't you? One of his bits of war gear is Asphalloth or his horse.
Yeah.
Although
Fair
if you're
enough.
taking a horse on Glorfindel instead of Asphalloth,
No, Glorfindel can't have a horse.
I.
No, you're thinking of Arwen. Arwen can have either.
Oh, okay.
Glorfindel can only have Asphalloth. So
Well,
if
there
you're
we
having
go.
Mm-hmm.
both, you have to have a horse on Arwen. He gets Chad precedent, I guess.
Intern,
Also,
edit that bit
yeah.
out because I sounded wrong.
This is like you trying to
Yes,
unmask the
boss.
intern all over again.
If a model has its melee weapons shattered by the shatter special rule, does it still count as unarmed? Yes. You can't use a bow as a melee weapon.
Which is funny because I'm pretty sure he does in the movie, but that's all right. I think
Yeah.
that's a good. I think that's a fine precedent. This is like trying to shatter all of Dwalin's axes or all of Dwalin's weapons.
Yeah, there was. I saw
He
some.
has like 4.
I saw some
Mhm.
comments on the FAQ saying I'd hate to be the TO who was caught out ruling it this way, or was pressured into ruling it this way. If you were playing like this, what?
You watched the movie.
All right, shut up. Moving on to the last FAQ question,
Yeah.
if it's going to come up. Pairing off fights. Again,
Yeah.
this is a clarification that everyone was already playing it a certain way. And then recently there's been a wave of players who've gone, oh, hang on a second, and potentially overread the rule. Page 28, delete the third sentence of the second paragraph, which reads, at the end of the move phase, opponents are always paired off into one-on-one fights where possible.
Yeah, see, I think it's interesting you say that people are always playing it that way. I think this has been a case of possibly rules getting copied over in a strange way from previous editions, because there have been situations where that's happened before, where they've changed something, but a previous part of the book refers to something that is no longer there. This specifies pretty unambiguously that you must always pair off fights into one-on-one fights where possible. And there's a bit in the later in this segment which says the person with priority dictates who's fighting who, and those things seem to sort of contradict each other, other than situations where one person has 3 models, one person has 2, and one of them is touching both. This essentially removes this section saying you must do one-on-one fights, and allows the person with priority to essentially have full control to pair fights wherever they want. It's very
what
niche.
you're saying is it's a massive buff for Balin, Pits of Dol Guldur, and Elrond.
Yes. And also Thror.
And also Thrall.
And Durin.
And Durin, sorry.
Jesus, learn all your priority rerolls.
Saruman.
All right.
Saruman.
And good players in scenario play, sure.
Like Fan was just about to say, it's pretty niche.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen all that often.
It doesn't come up much because multi-fights where there's actually a serious amount of choice, very uncommon.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave, we lost you there.
Multi-fights where there's actually any meaningful choice, there's basically doesn't happen. There's like a very, very occasionally.
Yeah.
And just to clarify why Stephen was saying that's good for those models in particular, it's because they all get some bonuses to controlling priority. And in a certain niche scenarios, kind of having priority means you get to pick the fights, and you're less limited now with this FAQ.
I was mostly memeing. If you're taking Elrond specifically for this FAQ'd rule, I respect you a lot, but not for the right reasons.
Elrond's foresight points are pretty powerful.
Question for John. You're the newest player out of us.
Yeah.
Were there any of those that surprised you or changed the way you thought the game was played?
So the pairing of fights thing is actually a conversation I'd had with Stephen and Dave previously. My interpretation of it was exactly kind of that models have to be one-on-one fights. So it's a bit of an eye-opener. I think, I can't remember either it came up against Stephen or against Dave, either in a tournament or a practice game, where they kind of explained, no, actually it works, kind of, it doesn't have to be strictly one-on-ones.
I think it was me in Bristol. And when you asked for clarification, I said, I've been playing the game for 10 years. This is how everyone plays it. Because I didn't have an actual reference for saying it.
Which I disagreed with and was like, that's not a good enough reason.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not a good enough reason.
But then we played with it. It might have been in a battle report.
It was in the Lothlorien Rivendell versus your Lake Town Soup.
Love it. What else? Kind of, I think a lot of them are kind of common sense changes. I think, most of them I think are common sense changes rather than kind of ones that kind of really change how I've been interpreting the rules.
Yeah, cool.
So moving on very quickly to the most important part of any FAQ is the community reactions. This is just going to be a very brief segment because, again, if you're not watching it, you're not going to get the jokes. Firstly, 30-point increase, less than half of what I'd hoped for.
Thanks.
Secondly, it's a well, if you're not looking at the memes, I'm not going to describe them for you.
This one really tickled me.
This one really tickled me because I also think the Witch King should be there as well for obvious reasons.
It's a comic,
but it's a comic where the Dragon Emperor is getting beaten up and just Lightning Minori and Suladan are hiding around the corner,
looking scared.
Stephen Denby audiobook coming soon. Jamie Wiggins, wow, what a fun couple of hours. Unrelated note, anyone after an Easterling army?
I also have an Easterling army for sale.
No, you don't, because I'm taking it off your hands, remember.
No, fine. If anyone wants to outbid Stephen for my Easterling army, please comment.
Michael Newell said, all I wanted was Grimbold on a horse. # justice for Grimbold. Yes, I agree, as previously stated. Grimbold should have a horse.
They won't do it for licensing reasons.
No, they won't. Tell me, when is the next MESBG errata for a much desired to be hero of legend? Make Teleporn a hero of legend.
That's everyone's
That'd be cool.
favourite elf cuckold, Teleporner.
Teleporno, yes, his correct Sindar name, or is it Kenya? I can't quite remember. So yeah, that's your little dose of memes. If you're not on the GBHL Facebook group at FAQ time, you get about a day's worth of just quality and shit memes. It's beautiful and glorious. You should be on there. Moving on swiftly to our upcoming events for the next couple of weeks. Firstly, this weekend coming, we've got the Warhammer World GT in Nottingham.
Exciting.
At Warhammer World. It's 100 points. It's at Warhammer World. What more is there to say? It's going to be a good versus evil. I think it's 800 points.
700 usually.
700, sorry.
I mean, I haven't actually seen the rules pack, but it has been good v evil 700 points for the last however many years.
X number of years, yeah.
Yeah, it is that. I was trying to snipe a ticket, but if you've got a ticket for sale for this tournament, comment below. I'll buy it for you.
For a free shout out. We'll trade a shout out for a ticket. We've got Anglian Army's Rise, which is an 80 on the Sunday. And we've got Battle of Borodur. I think it's the 4th or 5th time round.
They've been doing it since before COVID. I know that because I went in February 2020, which was a little cursed.
And that's a GBHL 90 again in London. And then the weekend after that, we've got Gathering at the Grey Havens, Charles Sims up in Preston, and the Monster Mash, GBHL 80 with some cool, funky rules in Swindon. That's hosted by Tom Patterson.
So, Dave, we've got two 700 point-ish, I think, GBHL hundreds. What's your hot take on what's going to win? What should people be preparing for?
I've got a feeling we're going to see a Minas Tirith on the podium at one of these two.
It's a
Just
big
pure
call.
Minas Tirith with
I think
Boromir.
Warhammer World has a likelihood to have a random Minas Tirith player just turn up on the podium.
Yeah,
I think that's quite likely.
Yeah, I think the one extra point at the Grey Havens, get 701 points, makes Minas Tirith just a lot more viable.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because Minas Tirith has got stuff that's positioning it well based on some of the things we're seeing?
I think Minas Tirith kind of nullifies some of the stronger evil armies at 700. I think
it does well into Witch King
5/5 D7 troops.
Does well into Dragon Emperor.
Grinds well.
Yeah.
Gets pretty solid numbers on the board, solid might. Boromir himself is actually very hard to stop because he's 6 might, fight 7. And cheeky little stuff like the Horn of Gondor makes him more and more reliable.
Yeah.
You have access. Usually, it'll be either Madril and Kirin, or Madril and Kyrian, depending on how many models you want. And both Kyrian and Hurin have resolve, which is great for helping him deal with, because you can spend their might essentially to make Boromir that much more durable against like double casters and whatnot, against those pesky Angmars, pesky Witch Kings. Plus D7 means that you can walk into Uruk-hai crossbow lines and not worry too much. You don't necessarily need to have blinding light for that. So yeah, I think it's a solid shout. Evil wise, I mean, it could be all sorts.
If Jerchai is going, it'll be Isengard.
He is going, and I would be amazed if he didn't take Isengard or Assault upon Helm's Deep. Although
He's been on a tear with the Isengard, some would say.
He's found something he likes. Keep using it until someone stops him.
Yeah, I'll pencil Jay in for an Isengard 100 podium on my spreadsheet already.
Yeah. Obviously Arnor is fantastic at 700. We know that. Hard to recommend because getting the models is a pain, and if you're going to Warhammer World, you better have some official models. Or Games Workshop converted models, yes.
Or you just never let your opponents pick up your models.
Arnor is great at 700. 50 models, it's ridiculous.
Cool. Moving on to the final segment, the most important segment. Comments. This is what everyone's here for. Firstly, Jord of the Rings, which is a great YouTube name. Thanks for the comments on my army, gents. I was tempted to convert Mounted Thorin, then realised I wasn't a millionaire. This is the Galadhrim and Thorin Iron Hills alliance, which we looked at last week's Best Painted. The potential cost of converting Mounted Dwalin and Mounted Thorin is pretty ridiculous if you're actually paying GW
If you
prices.
buy them in the currently available versions where you have to buy the whole company, don't do that.
Yeah,
use
don't do
plastic. Use the plastic ones if you want to use official stuff.
So
The secret is borrowing off your very talented painter friend.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
I've converted the 4 dwarves onto goats, and I got the dwarves off eBay secondhand, just individual sprues, and they cost me 4 of them cost me half of the company. That was before the price increase. So yeah, I was 40, 45 quid for the 4 dwarves on foot to then convert onto goats, which are like what at the time they were 45 quid for 3. So yeah,
and the goats themselves are expensive enough anyway.
Yes.
Really
so that's tough. So I don't blame you at all, George.
The only JP1, my identity will remain a mystery. Big fan of the pod. What faction do you all think will have the most 100 podiums by the end of the year?
Mordor.
Realistically, Mordor. If I have anything to say about it, Rivendell.
On a late tear.
Yeah, on a late tear right at the end of the year. When weirdly all of the rankings get a bit mucked up. I don't know what will happen. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm confused, Stephen. I thought you were going for Dragon Emperor. Or is that secret?
No, Dragon Emperor isn't a secret. I just like to mix it up a little bit. I've got elves and then there's better elves, which is Dragon Emperor.
Now that they've been nerfed, it's okay for you to play them.
As I say, I've literally owned the models for like over a year. Now I feel okay to play it.
The FAQ has genuinely made me want to paint up my Dragon Emperor.
Exactly.
Just to prove everyone wrong.
Well, I think most people, I think it's probably more common opinion that it wasn't enough of a nerf. I've seen more than the opposite.
Yeah. Fat Hobbit Gaming, Liam Smith. Nice to hear from you guys again. Liam, please sort your apostrophization out. It is killing me. I will always accept donations to my dice hoard. So, question for you. You mentioned different points levels throughout the year. What's your favorite points level to play the game at and why?
800.
800 plus for me. I like having the big toys.
Because that's the perfect points level for Vanquishers.
799 because he can't play against Vanquishers. My ideal tournament is, funnily enough, probably unnumbered tiers because it's 1,000 points and no legendary legions. So there's no Black Riders, there's no Vanquishers, and you get sick toys and you get good game length.
I would go 600 to 700.
Boo! We're all Irish fans here. We like the big one.
My reasoning for 800 is, I think 600 plus is really where the game comes into its own. But I like 800 because you can basically get everything.
Yeah, I think anything lower than 600, you get a bit too swingy.
There's a lot of variety at 800. But yeah, below 600, it can become a very, very complicated game of rock, paper, scissors in some ways.
Yeah.
And sometimes just one bit of bad luck just shafts you.
Just always go rock.
It's true in a lot. Well, yeah, it's true in a lot of like levels that you can get shafted by one bit of bad luck. But at 450 or 500, it feels very present. Like your big hero flubbing one crucial opportunity, you probably don't have another shot after that. At least with 800, your big hero dying, like losing your Gandalf or something really early, you still have, you're still flying half a ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Seth Clark 6895. 2 questions. Are there any unpopular heroes you run and why? And where can I get my hands on some AH dice? Do you guys have a shop? Regarding the dice, that's kind of an ongoing discussion. We give them out to people we play at events if we've still got any. I personally have spent like a ridiculous amount of money on giving out dice.
Yeah. If anybody comes up to me at an event with proof on their YouTube that you've commented on an episode of the pod, I'll give you a dice. While supplies last.
Yeah, same.
It's a good advice. I give out personal dice of myself, but only to people I absolutely smash. So
is that why I've got so many?
Unpopular heroes you run and why? I like Aristor.
Oh, yeah.
I just think he's neat. I don't think he's very good. I think he
is a potato. That's correct.
He is a bit of a potato, but I just think he's quite fun. Also, Elfhelm. Not everyone rates him. I do.
Yeah, I only
play popular heroes because I'm a dirty meta chaser.
Correct.
Doesn't help.
Dewi, tell us about the Mahud King and Suladan.
They're not unpopular heroes.
Depends on
all
your
right, Beast of
definition
Gorgoroth. That
depends on
counts,
your
right?
definition of unpopular.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say Great Beast of Gorgoroth. That's a
It
better
Great
one.
Beast
makes
of
Dewi
Gorgoroth.
unpopular, but
Hey, I've won most sporting with Great Beast of Gorgoroth. Thank you very much.
you've also got 0 most sporting votes with Great Beast of Gorgoroth at a different tournament.
Yeah, and those tournaments are about 2 weeks apart.
The novelty wore off real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Mr. Partridge has played my beasts
Is that a euphemism?
twice.
I think my favorite unpopular hero is probably I really like the Hobbit heroes. I'm trying to find an excuse to run Defenders of the Shire with Rosie and Sam. I think that's a funny combo.
I'm pretty certain, Dave, all hero Defenders of the Shire Legendary Legion comes in at about 600 points.
No, it doesn't. It comes in at about 300.
I was gonna say that's definitely not correct. It's more than that.
Or maybe all Shire heroes.
So quickly, unpopular
I did
hero.
the math at one point.
Burda.
Oh,
in
yes.
an Angmar list.
I rate Burda.
And
I wouldn't say he's unpopular, but he's
probably
definitely
Dwyn,
like
probably Dwyn here.
Yeah. What's he doing here?
Burda's like Gwali's little brother.
Yeah. Ads 157 says, new player here. I'm playing Rise of Theoden and was wondering what a good way to do with monsters. Thanks, love the podcast and all the battle reports. We were meant to have Elliot on. Unfortunately, he's unavailable. However, I play Riders of Theoden quite a lot. In fact, I've got Aemir right here on my desk, proof. There's 2 things you can do with monsters in general. Either you deal with them immediately in one go, or you ignore them and feed them 1 model a turn.
Sorry, go on.
If you have Royal Guard, they're really good for getting rid of monsters because you just charge a Royal Guard into them. Make sure you can't be hurled or barged in an effective manner. Sort. The alternative is you charge in with a hero and a bunch of other guys and you kill it in 1 turn.
Yeah, I mean, Riders of Theoden have plenty of access. So if it's a monster hero, you have to be a bit more careful. But if it's a monster hero, you can do a fun thing where you charge, say, Aemir and Theoden into a nearby fella. You can strike combat. You can get your check your strike has gone high enough before you commit to fighting the monster. So like Aemir strikes, Theoden combats. Aemir goes up to fight 10, Theoden, you kill the model you're fighting, and then you can safely charge them both in, knowing that you've got a very good chance of getting the 6 with all your might. And once you've got there, you can just dump all your might on killing it. If it's a big problem, if it's a massive piece, if it's something like a cave troll, you can probably just charge 2 guys in, strike, and kill it in 1.
Yeah.
But if you're talking like fell beasts or great eagles, it's a bit more complicated.
Yeah,
if it's a big beast, don't be afraid to charge in 2 strikers and strike with both.
Yes. Yeah. You have more than enough.
Especially when you start at fight 5. Yeah. Because fight 5 and if they're starting at fight 7, you don't want to risk it. I've done this a lot with like Suladan the Witch King. It's obviously not Riders of Theoden, but it's the same principle. You've got 2 fight 5 strikers, and you're like, well, each one of them has a 1 in 3 chance of going to 10, but with both of them doing it, you have a much better odd. Like I always do that if I'm fighting like Guahir or Bayorn or like Glorfindel or something that has fight 7 or higher.
Yeah. So yeah, in summary, don't be afraid to blow your might, strike combat, and if you can't deal with it, chuck a Royal Guard in, dismount your Royal Guard and just shield against it if you have to.
Briefly going back to the last question, Defenders of the Shire hero only is 550 points, 19 models. You can see the full list on the screen now. Wow, what an amazing list!
Amazing list. I love Rosie Cotton so much.
Why didn't you give Frodo a pony? What are you, a hater?
Sounds like you should be running that to a 550 point event later in the year, John.
Yes, John.
I can't face painting that many hobbits.
Struggle to try and bring this podcast to a natural close because people are talking about comments for far too long. Sorry, what was that? Just going on a rant. Moot videos. Shout out Harry Parkhill, Moot podcast. Top Bants, you requested a question, so here it is. Why isn't the Golden King of Abrakan in all lists ever? Short answer: Suladan and Dragon Emperor.
I think the Golden King of Abrakan is very good, but he's 15 points more than Suladan, and Suladan is a better hero legend and has a 6-inch banner.
Yeah.
Golden King is gimmicky and exciting, but he doesn't have March Strike and Resolve and a 6-inch banner. So
And it's fight 4
unfortunately,
base.
actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Fight 4 base, 4 attacks Burley is pretty cool though. And also he has a crazy base, which means he can trap models against walls by himself, which is funny.
He can
Yes.
drift.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can do all sorts of weird stuff.
Yeah. Cool model, but he's not Suladan.
Yeah.
Short answer.
Unfortunately, Suladan is eternally too good value, and that's basically why he's good.
Moving on.
Yep.
Hobby Hobbits 33. See, I've shut everyone up now with my rant. Sorry, guys. Bill the Pony does not, in fact, get eaten by the Watcher, but escapes and is reunited with Sam.
I told
believe.
you, doesn't get.
Yeah. See, for some reason, I was under that impression. I was wrong. I apologize.
I was gonna say he kicks Bill Fernie.
He does kick
Actually,
Bill Fernie,
Thomas has mentioned
as
that
per
in the
Thomas
comments.
Denny's comment below. So thanks for the
Yeah.
correction. Always appreciate letting us know when we're wrong.
It was a lie to get you to
Useful info.
engage. Tee
Ah, baited.
Means I don't have to paint Bill the Pony for the narratives.
Exactly. Luke Senishine 4886 says, "Let's go Dunland." Agreed. Let's go Dunland.
Damn right.
Let's go Dunland.
Are we going to Dunland next weekend
Let's go
or like the
Dunland.
week after? Or...
I think he was commenting on the fact that someone won a tournament with Dunland. I think it was Alex Neves.
It wasn't Ali King though, so you know.
It was Finn Stanleyforth.
It was.
it?
Up
of
in
course it was.
Up in
Yeah, I was getting
Dundee.
Up in
I was getting my
Dunland.
Scots and Irish mixed up. They'll hate that.
Ads 157 comments. What do you mean by 90s? It was explained in the comment replies, but
It
there's
was the
3
era of human civilization in which we were all born.
Ooh,
No further comments,
yeah, correct.
apart from what Stephen's going to say.
As rankings officer, it's my duty to inform you that there are three types of tournaments in the GBHL scene. That there's 80s, 90s, and 100s. It's basically qualified by the amount of points that the pole position first gets you. So if you win a GBHL 100, you get 100 points. GBHL 90 gets you 90 points. GBHL 80 gets you 80 points, and then the points remaining are divided by the remaining players. At the end of the year, your 6 best scores contribute towards your placing in the year. So if you win 6 100s, you get 600 points. If you win 6 90s, and those are your 6 best scores, you only get 540 points. Hence the difference in competitiveness. GBHL 100s are worth more points. 90s tend to be slightly more competitive than 80s, but you can still expect to have, you know, like a good, fun, chill time, have some laughs. Not that you can't do that at 100s, it's just you know where you stand in terms of what type of event you're going to. That's the idea.
GBHL 100s are national competitive events. 90s are regional competitive events. People will travel further for GBHL 100s. GBHL 80s are wacky and fun events.
What the boss said.
Yes, boss.
David Gravy 2 says, "We can't comment on the pod." Okay, don't then. As you all say such great content, and thus I can't rate it as you sat barely anything stupid or controversial. Quite a few spelling mistakes there, Davey. I think you've had too much gravy. Apart from the intern who is a meta
He's
chasing
lost in the
tryhard
sauce.
with no personality and no friends.
Damn. Thanks, Davey Gravy. What a
We're going to
great
have
comment.
to call HR regarding that because that's quite offensive to our intern.
Nah, he's right. He's cooking.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we got one review from Davey Gravy, and then he didn't do another one, so I'm quite upset with him.
Am I muting any chat about the Gravy Boy, or are we leaving it in?
Nah, we're leaving it in.
Fine.
I'm sure
Got to
he
let
can
him get his
handle it.
kicks somehow, you know.
Just for kicks.
Yeah. Right. Well, that was a podcast.
Yeah. Talk about podcasts, am I right?
Woohoo.
Well, hey.
Sorry for the somewhat frantic pace towards the end, everyone. I was
We realised we talked way too long about things that don't matter early on in the podcast.
yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, apologies. We try and keep these two somewhere near an hour. This was not quite near an hour. We'll do better next time.
Hour and a half is okay.
I'm tired, boss.
I'm tired, boss. Firstly, thank you very much, Dewi, for coming on.
That's quite
And
all right.
also
Thank you for
for
having me.
providing photos. we will provide links, hopefully, to Guardians of Wiltshire in the description, etc. Intern, that's your job. Anything you want to plug before you go? Your movement shenanigans, your basey things, your 3D prints?
Yeah, Discord has it all. If you message the Guardians of Wiltshire Facebook page, you'll get an automatic message that has a link to that kind of stuff. Running 190 later in the year. I've just been looking at the rules pack for 100 today.
Yeah.
Tickets will be out soon.
Lovely.
I'd just like to thank Guardians of Wiltshire for becoming the official sponsor of the podcast and providing us with unlimited 3D printed parts and gaming aids. It's very kind.
I will
Yes, thank
take
you.
it in exchange for something else, John.
We can discuss that later.
I like the implications there. It's like, we're going to talk about prescriptions, John. Prescriptions.
I'm definitely going to have to mute that bit.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Remember to comment, like, share, subscribe, support your Hobbit hobby. Remember to get your 3D prints from Dewi specifically. Happy strategy battle gaming. And remember to leave your comments below.
Cheers to chitter.
Cheers to chitter.
Keep
See you
chitter chattering
later.
in our comment section.
One question I did forget, which hopefully John is going to edit in somewhere. Sorry, John, for the additional editing. Your fellow co-hosts, snog, marry, avoid. I would define my fellow co-hosts as John, Josh, and Elliot. Sorry, Dave. You're not an official Any Heroics member. I would... Oh, that's a difficult one. I would snog Josh, I would marry Elliot, and I would avoid John. Sorry, John.
Ooh.
He'd ruin you.